Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name's Carl. I'm the founder of fMRI, and today, in this scorching heat, we are accompanied by Dr. Yanbo Hu. Dr. Yanbo Hu is a psychologist, a cognitive neuroscientist, and a senior faculty member at the London Metropolitan University. And I'm proud to say that we've managed to snag you as our scientific advisor at fMRI. So thank you so much for coming. And let's have a chat, shall we?
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so first things, maybe for the people who don't know you, could you, because I know your story a little bit, but could you please tell me your life story, so to speak, and explain your research interests and how you got to where you are today?
All right. Thank you, Carl, and hello, everyone. So my name is Yanbo Hu, and feel free to call me Dr. Hu if you like the series. I came to the UK in 2005 after I did my psychology degree in China. Throughout my learning journey, I realized that I had a burning desire to really understand what's the mechanism underlying our behavior, our cognitive processes, and what's this black box that we all have is doing. And therefore that I pursued the master degree in cognitive neuroscience. At that time, in University of York, we were one of the very few master program that actually allow us to carry out functional MRI imaging studies for the master students. And I was very honored to be supervised by Professor Graham Hitch, who is one of the, the most pronounced neuroscientist in working memory model. So we did a project together to investigate the brain mechanism underlying serial working memory. And from that, I then moved on to do my PhD in Royal Holloway. And again, I was very lucky to be able to work with Professor Robin Walker. And together we worked on how what's the brain mechanism underlying the programming of more than one saccade at the same time?
One saccade?
Yes. So saccade is the sort of academic term for eye movement.
Eye movement.
Yes. And so you might be surprised that eye movement is the movement that we actually make the most every day without knowing. And we're taking it absolutely for granted. And we need it for majority of our tasks. And so therefore then I was very interested in looking at how does our brain work and why we can carry out and conduct this very complicated movement at a super efficient method.
Amazing. Wow. Now, the first thing you did, MSc Cognitive Neuroscience, your thesis was the brain mechanism of serial short-term memory using fMRT. What is fMRT? fMRI.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So functional magnetic resonance imaging. So in a way that we will be able to measure the blood flow in our brain.
Yes.
That's coupled with the neural activity level.
Yeah.
And so this is basically will give us the data point that will be constructed into the beautiful brain imaging pictures that we see. So in essence, that we are actually taking the measurement of how does the blood flow coupling with our neural activity, and rather than actually taking the photo of the brain itself. And in a way that when there are brain areas that's involving in the particular neural activity, neural tasks, then these kind of different brain areas will be more activated, and therefore it costs more energy.
Right.
And therefore then when it needs more energy, then there will be more blood flow that flow into that particular area, and fMRI will then be able to pick up these activities.
Did that study that you did, was there a particular goal or a particular thesis that you wanted to test out? And
So,
if yes, if so, what was it in layman terms, hopefully?
So yes, so basically, in terms of working memory or short-term memory, what the paradigm we used is that we were presenting the participants a sequence of numbers, one after another.
Yeah.
And then we're testing the participants whether they will be able to identify at the end the target framework. For example, if we present the participants 5 numbers,
Yes.
and then in the end, we will present 5 numbers,
Yep.
and the participants will need to decide whether these 5 numbers were the correct sequence or not. And so based on previous studies, and there were lots of behavior studies that shown these patterns, that participants tend to be able to remember the beginning of the sequence and the end of the sequences. However, at that time, the brain mechanism were still lacking, and there were different sort of results being published, and we like to look at what's the particular brain area that actually contribute into the sequence, recognizing the sequence, the particular order of the task of the stimuli.
Interesting. So it's like they were testing out these numbers. They had to memorize sequence of numbers.
Yes.
And one of the things that came out is that people are generally stronger at the beginning, at the end.
Yeah.
The middle part is weaker.
Yeah.
And it correlates with different sides of activity of the brain.
The different parts of the brain.
Different parts
So
of the brain.
what we found was that mainly the left prefrontal cortex that's involving in this short-term serial memory.
Yes.
And we also had a different delay period in a way that, so after, it's actually quite a difficult task if you think about it, you know, and the sequences of number can vary between like 5 to up to 8 or 9 items. And then after that, participants were presented one after another. There will be a delay time where they have to actually actively rehearse the sequence of number, and then we present the target area. And it's really interesting because it's to do with sequence, but the result that the brain regions that we found also had been reported to be involving in numbers, to be involving in music and time as well. And these, if we're thinking about these cognitive elements involving in number, involving in time and music, they all have that sequence, you know, in intrinsically.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's really fascinating when we're looking at it that way.
So, as a layman talking, if you figure out that people are really strong, that certain activity from certain parts of the brain is the part where they do memorization the best, then hypothetically, is there then a way for us to short circuit this and always have that on so that we are getting that our memory performance improves?
That is a really good question, and actually that was one of my burning desire when I first encountered the TMS, like a brain stimulation.
Imagine if Elon Musk built a Neuralink, and he knows it's that part of the brain that will help your memory, and it just keeps on tickling it.
Well, exactly.
So that we become superhuman.
Exactly. You know, if we can just keep stimulating particular part of the neural circuit, and whether that will actually enhance the sort of our neural activities and therefore enhance our cognitive performances. So there are different views in terms of that, and I think you've catched the right moment in terms of we are talking about working memory. And working memory in itself actually function as almost like a platform that's supporting lots of other cognitive performances. And therefore there are arguments in brain training field in a way that if we train working memory, and it is possible that we will be able to get stronger. It's like, you know, we're working out a muscle. And then the debate further is that whether training a particular cognitive function will have a global training effect in a way that whether training a particular sort of cognitive processes will have benefit in other cognitive processes. Now, the idea of that is that if we're looking in the working memory context,
Yes.
which means that working memory actually supporting lots of other cognitive performances, and that yes, it's reasonable to predict that there will be a benefit
Yeah.
in enhancing other cognitive performances.
Yeah.
Now, mostly because of lots of other cognitive performances, we're actually relying upon the working memory.
So this is already accepted in the scientific community, that if you were able to stimulate a certain area of the brain to improve memory, that it would also have ripple effects into other areas of cognitive performance. Is that what you're saying?
I think it's for the working memory itself, that would be the case.
Yeah.
And for other sorts of cognitive performances,
Yeah.
we will need to look at different ways, because when we're looking at other sorts of long-term memory studies,
Yeah.
for example, the London taxi drivers, because
Yeah.
the training
Yeah.
takes 2 to 4 years
Yeah.
for black cab drivers.
Yeah.
And therefore, there is that saturation
Yeah.
for the hippocampus area of the map remembering.
Yep.
And therefore, that when actually testing the London taxi drivers,
Yep.
they do perform better in the particular specific task in terms of tasks that related to London landmarks.
Okay.
However, when they were tested for other visual spatial working memory,
Yeah.
they perform worse. So, there is that trade-off sometimes, that if we're looking at that way, then, when we super hone in one particular task, then our brain may become less adaptive for other area.
Yes.
Yeah.
So fascinating.
Well, this is about psychology, right?
Yes.
So it's less sort of definitive when we're thinking about math or physics, where psychology research that there are more nuances in it. So as much as we like to be able to say a more kind of definitive answer, and in reality, when we're looking at the literature, that there are a lot more kind of nuance that we need to be aware and unpack.
Okay, but I'm gonna hold on to the Elon Musk idea. So technically, it would be possible to boost memory using technology.
I would like to think that.
Okay.
And I think it's promising.
Yeah.
I think it's hopeful.
Yep.
And I think that there are a lot more research at more theoretical and at basic level that we should do and we need to do. However, that the application side of cognitive neuroscience is huge. So I'm passionate about it, and therefore joining in foundermatcha is amazing platform.
So let's try to maybe use this as a bridge to edge towards foundermatcha. Well, the first thing I want to ask is, what is do you have a thesis, or have you maybe touched upon research that kind of already predicts how the nature of how memory works in the brain is now shifting through our reliance of AI? Because I'm basically making an analogy here, is that I used to be a driver, and there was a time when we will rely on maps to drive, and I was pretty okay at it. And now I rely on Google Maps to get me from A to B, even though I've done it already 20 times, and I still rely on it. And that was the trend 5 years ago. And nowadays I rely, because all my, I'm ashamed to say, my emails, my plot, it's all integrated into my ChatGPT now, and it remembers everything for me. And I actually I notice that I'm relying on ChatGPT now to tell me what I should be doing and what my priorities are today. Yeah. So I personally feel that my memory is somehow deteriorating. Do you agree? Is that what's happening? What is your thesis on this?
So actually, we did have a research that looking at how does internet searching have actually impact our memory, which I did with my collaborators, Professor Guang Hengzheng and his team. What we found was that because that technology advances and we are able to find information at our fingertip, and therefore that the need for us to actually maintain or retain information in our brain is a lot less than before.
Yeah.
And therefore it actually does shape our brain. And we actually offload a lot of that memory capacity to the ease of technology.
And so that's really interesting to know. And my follow-up question then is, are we becoming dumber, weaker creatures, or does it actually free up our cognitive bandwidth to do more sophisticated stuff?
I think that's a really, really good question and a very insightful question. I think that now I'm just thinking the two ways that we can look at it, right? So one is that, yes, we can free up the spaces for us to actually be able to do more high-level processing,
Yes.
More strategically, more critical thinking, that we can just get information as long as we know where things are.
Yeah.
However, on the other side is that how are we going to be able to build up these tools, these skills, without actually storing the necessary information in our mind, right? So if we're thinking about intuition, what is intuition? Intuition is more of a gut feeling that relying on our past experiences and our past learning. So then the learning and the experiences, again, these are the information that's stored within us. And so that I think, therefore, the cultivating of the deliberate thinking, the deliberate sort of critical thinking, strategic thinking, and how do we utilize these AI tools are becoming more and more sort of fundamental, that we, at the same time that we can't completely, you know, abandon what we sort of.
I have the feeling that the world is going towards that. We are actually capable of, because of AI, of so much more, because we can offload the basic memory task and the basic tasks to AI, so that we can do, you know, high-level inference and analysis on top of it. But we've become over-reliant on it to the point where if that for some reason falls away, we become utterly hopeless because we just don't have the base that we need.
And we also need to be able to sort of distinguish what is a better output from AI and what is the less, you know, optimal output. And so in that way, that also relying on, again, ourselves to actually be able to make a decision on that as well.
Fascinating. I want to move the conversation slightly away to the psychological area. So now I want to, can you explain to me, very basic, the relationship, if there is a relationship, between memory and IQ and productivity?
Right. Okay. Yes, absolutely. When we're looking at IQ, one of the sort of most established way of measuring IQ is the Welsham 5. I think currently it's the 5th version, and one of the subdivision is actually working memory.
Okay, got it.
And so that's what refers back to what I was talking about, that working memory is a fundamental that's supporting lots of cognitive tasks. And therefore, yes, it has highly sort of correlated with our IQ in terms of how we measure IQ.
Got it.
It has been suggested that IQ is one of the most reliable predictor for performances.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So because I am not, I've done a course before in psychology. I have a huge interest in it, so I listen to a lot of podcasts related to it. What I know is that there's many predictors for future income and career success, but IQ is still one of the strongest indicators that has strongest correlation to career performance and income. And so and then if you're saying if memory is a big predictor of IQ, then there's like a three-way correlation right there. And so therefore, if our memory is actually getting weaker over time because of our over-reliance on AI, we're actually getting dumber and less productive in a certain way. On our own, I guess with AI, we'll be more productive, but on our own, we'll be less productive.
I think that it's probably worth mentioning that there are different types of memory.
Okay.
So when we're talking about the things that we can remember, we're mostly talking about the long-term memory, the memory that kind of stored in our system that we learned deliberately, or we learned, we kind of can remember what do we have for breakfast, etc. When we're looking at the particular type of memory that's closely associated with IQ is we're talking about the working memory, and essentially is that if we're thinking about the differences between the working memory and the long-term memory, we can think about the hard disk in our computer as the long-term memory, and the RAM in our computer as the working memory.
Right.
And so it's the RAM, the working memory, that's particularly associated with the IQ.
The RAM is the working memory, right?
Yes.
Not the long-term memory.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. At least that is how currently the IQ is measured.
But I would argue that it's exactly the RAM that we're offloading so easily to AI if we can. Right? Like the long-term memory that's embedded, it's almost like hard-coded in me. I know exactly what happened with me. The principles that I've learned over the many years, it's ingrained in me. But I struggle with this hyper productive AI world to actually remember what I did, what I ate for lunch yesterday sometimes. So, I don't think I'm a pretty smart person, but I'm betting my money that whatever I'm experiencing, lots of people are experiencing.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Let's see if we can create a segue from here to foundermatcha. Is there a difference between founder productivity and as opposed to other kinds of productivity, in your opinion? Or how does memory, we are a founder engineer matchmaker. Yeah. Now, we are, as you know, basically a data-driven science project to find out what is the secret sauce that makes a founder and engineer compatible beyond what is visible on the CV. Where does memory fit in there, if it does at all, in general productivity towards doing a startup, or the compatibility between the two people?
I think at this point it might worth to bring in sort of other things that I've worked on.
Yes.
And I think together it kind of helps to provide a narrative or the sort of factors that contribute into what we were doing.
Yep.
So the other thing that I was mentioning about was that working on how the brain mechanism underlying eye movement.
Yep.
And when we're thinking about eye movement, it's a case we're thinking about, okay, where we're looking at things.
Yeah.
When we're looking at things.
Yeah.
And through that, we will be able to measure how long we look at things,
Yes.
what's our scanning pattern,
Yes.
and using eye tracker, we will be able to measure the pupil dilation. We will be able to measure the blink frequency. And so when we're looking at these sort of measurements, we can look at these measurements from the sort of more theoretical way in terms of how does our eye movement system work.
Yes.
On the other hand, we can also looking at these things from more application side.
Yes.
In terms of, we're looking at social interaction.
Yes.
When people are talking to each other.
Yes.
Right. So we will then be able to measure eye movements
Yes.
when people are in their sort of interpersonal social dynamics,
Yes.
whether they are more congruent
Yep.
in terms of, whether they are, looking at the similar sort of point of interest,
Yep.
for example,
Yep.
or whether their blink frequency tend to be synchronized,
Yes.
or whether their pupil dilation tend to be synchronized as well. So because for pupil dilation, for example, that we tend to sort of be able to derive the certain arousal level from pupil dilation.
Exactly.
And therefore, when we're actually thinking about the interpersonal dynamics,
Yeah.
then there is always that, the pro or antisocial sort of emotion elements within that. And so these sorts of things would then help us to decide to have a sneak peek window in terms of whether people are more compatible
Yes.
or not.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, so other projects that I've worked on is emotion regulation.
Yes.
So when we're talking about emotion regulation, we talk about the ability that we can regulate our emotion,
Yes.
and it can be down-regulating. So we're trying to use different strategy to help us to manage, let's say, negative emotion. Then we're trying to think to ourselves either rationally, this is the picture that I'm looking at. This is not happening in real life, or that there must be some reason behind others' behavior, or we can actually regulate our emotion in sort of spontaneous emotional regulation in a way that essentially what's behind it is really where we allocate our attention. Right? And so then the relationship between the emotion regulation and decision making is also has been found to be tightly correlated, which means that when we're looking at emotion regulation, we can think of, okay, we regulate our own emotion. However, we also regulate each other's emotion in social dynamics.
Yes.
And therefore, when co-founders or, small startup team, it's so important that, because the intimacy of the team for startup companies, that these sort of interpersonal dynamic are very important and has a big kind of impact on the decision making, and therefore then being able to regulate each other's emotion in discussing that different decision making scenarios or day-to-day tasks, for example, becomes very important.
Is it
Take a break
okay?
to change
Change the batteries.
Not too bad.
I enjoy this.
Me too.
Yeah.
Let me check the name for the IQ, and if we have to, I'm just going to record it, and then we
can put a disclaimer or something like
yeah,
that. Okay, yeah. We can wrap. We'll go 5 minutes more, and I think we can wrap it. This is really what I had in mind. We just really have a conversation.
Yeah.
So it
Great.
went really well.
keep going.
We're good?
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
So, emotional regulation. is it fair to say, and I would love to hear your thoughts about it, now, first of all, as you talked about eye movements, tracking eye movements, mimicking each other's behavior by synchronizing the blinking, those are all interesting indicators. We're working on that on the behind the scenes on foundermatcha for future iterations, so no need to dive too much in there until we get there, so to speak. But about emotional regulation, very interesting stuff. Is it fair to say that two co-founders need similar levels of ways of regulating their emotions if they have drastically different kind of like ways of doing it or different thresholds? Is that then basically an indication of strong different levels of neuroticism and therefore maybe incompatibility?
I think it's more of compatibility rather than whether they're using the same strategy or not.
Yes.
And therefore that what we're trying to work on is to collect as much data as we can.
Yes.
And therefore then we can train our models because we can collect data from our users' facial recognition and their sort of facial expressions.
Yes.
And then we can feed back into our model and we'll be able to,
Is there already
predict.
some kind of research available on how emotional regulation affects decision making?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me the top 3 things that would make for interesting knows for the general population about what is the relation between emotional regulation and decision making.
Well, so basically, if we're looking at the brain area that underpinning emotional regulation, and if we're looking at the brain area that underpinning decision making, lots of them actually overlapping.
Okay, what does that mean?
So in a way that we see for emotional regulation, we have the lateral prefrontal cortex involving in emotional regulation.
Yes.
And so when we're thinking about emotional regulation, first we have the emotional responses, right? And then we have the top-down emotional regulation that will be able to regulate the emotion.
Yes.
So these two are the different processes. And the top-down injection of the regulate of our emotional processes more deliberate, more voluntary, and involving in more prefrontal cortex, which is then an overarching sort of brain area that involving in lots of executive function. And when we're thinking about decision making is also quite high level of cognitive processes. And again, the prefrontal cortex involving in decision making processes as well. And so when we're looking at that, then it's not surprising to know that there are, close association between emotional regulation and decision making.
You're almost saying because they overlap so heavily, they're almost the same thing, right? If you're really emotionally affected by something, then of course naturally your decision making quality goes off.
Yeah. So again, so if we're thinking about sports, right? So if someone is really good at tennis, then we won't be really surprised that they can pick up table tennis and can do quite well as well, right? So because lots of it involving in similar sort of motor responses and the mental acuity, etc. And it's the similar sort of thing that when one's is very good at emotional regulation, then that shows that their executive function, their top-down regulation is quite strong. So their top-down regulation muscle is quite strong. And therefore then when this muscle is used in decision-making, then again, then we'll be able to see that, okay, so these people tend to be able to make more rational decision making.
Right.
There might be a little bit caveat in the sort of entrepreneur field in a way that entrepreneurs tend to be more risk tolerant. And so when we actually measure, so then we will need to thinking about the definition of rationale.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of within there has been found that the entrepreneurs tend to have higher tolerance for risks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that means that they're also then, I guess, emotionally a bit more have a bit more, emotionally resistant, or resistant, stress resistant.
More resilient in
More
terms
resilient.
of risk.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is risk the same as stress? No.
No, stress is the responses
Yeah.
that to risk.
Okay, got it.
So it's, if we translate how that relate to your question, I guess,
Yeah.
is that whether entrepreneurs tend to have a less emotional responses
Yeah.
towards risk
Yeah.
comparing to other group.
Got it.
So it's possible that there is less stress reaction
Yes.
for the same level of risk.
Yes.
And it's possible that there is a positive cognitive bias
Yep.
comparing to other group as well. That entrepreneurs tend to be more positive, more resilient, more hopeful. And within entrepreneur literature, that it has also been found that being hopeful is one of the elements that contributing into a long-term
Just
success
glass half
as
full,
well.
positive outlook,
Yeah.
etc. Fascinating. Look, I think we only touched the tip of the iceberg of what you've researched and how it could potentially apply to foundermatcha. I think we're running out of time. I would love to have another session with you soon where we dive a bit deeper into especially the eye movement, the eye tracking movement study that you did, and an extra level deeper into risk taking and decision making. But thank you so much for today.
Thank you very much.
I learned a lot. Hopefully the readers or the viewers have learned as well, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure.